Hello, everybody. Welcome this afternoon, this beautiful afternoon, this spring afternoon. So glad that you guys can come out here. My name is Audrey, Chef Audy Peoples. I am the chef owner of Soul's Ground Foods and Natural Healing, located in Benton Harbor, Michigan, with Benton Harbor, St. Joseph area. Um, One of the cuisines that I love, that I've kind of picked up on over the years, is the itale cuisine of the Jamaican Rastafarian. If you know anything about the Jamaican Rastafarian, it's those with with the dreadlocks, and but they are very peaceful people, very spiritual people, and they live off the land. Most of them have their own food products that grow right in the backyard. They believe in, of course, a very holistic food, mostly just fruits and vegetables, no animal products, of course. Very, very little seasoning. Most true Rastafarians don't use any salt or anything like that. Because I'm a little more westernized, I do like a little more seasoning in my food. So I usually use like either a sea salt or, of course, the Himalayan sea salt. If any of you are very familiar, I'm sure, with it, there's probably about 92 to 112 different minerals in that sea salt. And it's just stuff that we don't tend to get in the soil anymore. The soil has basically been destroyed by the GMO crops. So what I'm doing today is I've taken a spin-off of the Ital cuisine and I've rebranded it, so to speak, of the Vital. That is kind of, or the vital, basically, foods in that. And being, I'm from the Michigan area, or of course, being in this area, we are very blessed to have beautiful produce. A lot of it just grows kind of right along, so you can pick up some beautiful vegetables right along the side of the roads to stands, or you can go to farmers. And I, of course, encourage you to go local as possible. I mean, that's kind of like the mantra now for plant-based foods is, and especially the closer it is, the better it is, especially if you can grow it in your own backyard. What I'm going to do is just kind of demo, pretend like there's a stove here. I had kind of sectioned off, and my help, bless their hearts, kind of mixed everything together. But I just kind of wanted to kind of demonstrate. I've probably got about 10 different vegetables and so forth in this particular stew. It's called Vital Stew, and right now I have a booth right next door where I am able to sell it. But what I'd like to do is just kind of demo. It's really easy. I mean, the most work comes in your prep. And the thing about it is, the cool thing, especially the Jamaicans, they have beautiful root vegetables and they just, and a lot of times once you do all the prep and all the cutting, you just put it in a pot and just kind of let it go. And it really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes. If you like it a little softer, I tend to like it a little more al dente. Do. All right. I encourage you all to make your way. If you don't, visit Michigan. We're about 40 minutes away. You can take 31 I mean, you don't have to go to the bypass. I love going on the side of the roads, taking old 31. And that's where you get a chance to really come across a lot of the fruit stands and the vegetable stands, and just, and of course your local farmer markets. I really, really encourage you guys to just go crazy, go ham. Well, it's probably not a good metaphor, is it? What I want to do now is just kind of show some of the vegetables. This is it's a little, bless your hearts. So what we're going to do, what I also like to do is make a nice veg stock or a vegetable broth. And a lot of times what you can do is, like, when you cut vegetables, other than peppers, I would encourage, unless you already do this, whenever you cut potatoes, onions, celery, all of that, whatever the ends are, just kind of keep them in a bucket. And then, when you've accumulated enough, make a nice pot of water, some salt and pepper, some seasonings in there, and put your used vegetables in there and create a vegetable stock. Just let it simmer for a good hour or so, or more, so that those flavors kind of just come out. And you've got your veg stock. You can freeze it, section it off. So that's kind of what I like to do. So there's really no waste of any product. Now, if you use peppers, Peppers tend to give a kind of a tangy or metallic flavor to your stock. So other than pepper, whatever you're cutting, whatever you have left over, keep it and then just throw it all in a pot. You know, even if it's onions and it still has the end of the onion on there, that's fine. Because if it's clean, it, it's okay. And then you're gonna strain all of that old vegetable off, and you're gonna be left with a beautiful broth. This broth that I kind of have, I'm not sure if I'm sure with McKay's. It's a vegan broth. They have a not chicken, not beef, um, and it only takes a little bit. And then I like to throw a little salt in there and cracked pepper. Usually, if you have like one one or two large potatoes, like I love the red skin. I tend to scrub them very well because I love the skin on the red potato. It looks good. The skin tends to have nutrient in it, so I've kind of got some cut. It's really kind of easy, and I just kind of like to maybe cut it in quarters go back behind and just all of your ingredients really just want to be bite size. They will cook down a little bit, especially if there's water content in them. So this right here is red pepper. Red potato. Theoretically, I had in the Vital stew. What I have today, it would have been turnip, onion. I love sweet onions. Vidalia onions are amazing. And the thing about trying to cook without a lot of salt and just concentrating more on aromatics, so your aromatics will be your onions, garlic, ginger, and let's pretend like this pot is going. And I love to use grapeseed oil. I know a lot of people tend to use extra virgin. Grapeseed is good for you. It's more mild. It's definitely has a high heating point, so you can turn it up pretty high and it won't burn. So let's say this is going, we're gonna put a little bit of oil, in the bottom. At that point, what I like to do, and I wish you could, you feel like you're cooking when the pot is hot and you put your onions and stuff in, and it makes that sound. You like you're really cooking at that point. You're like you're doing something. So if the pot was going, I like to start out with aromatics. Unfortunately, I did have them sectioned off, but my help, and I love them. They are some amazing people. So your aromatics, you've got your onions. So it would, Spanish onions, red onions. My favorite are Vidalia onions, which are pretty much, your late spring, summer. Please excuse the plastic bags. I will reuse them. Celery, amazing. We would add celery, onions. There should also be some ginger and some garlic. So we're going to just throw some ginger and garlic in there as well. One of the things is that when you put your aromatics in, hence the term aromatic, is that you smell it. Once it hits the heat and the oil, it starts to give off that aroma. The aromatics, it kind of releases its gases. When it starts to turn translucent, that's kind of when you want to stir, just kind of a little bit. And from there, so we have celery, ginger, onions, and then once we start to smell the aromatics going through, that's when we want to start adding stuff like our root vegetables. For instance, the potatoes that I just cooked, we'll let those go. Carrots, put those in. And there was some turnips here that kind of got. So what we're going to do is the carrots, onions, all of that other stuff, that's going. And then I love spices. There's no reason to, if you prefer, to buy Aviaries, which is basically just paprika and salt. It's really kind of cool to put your own seasoning blends together. And so I try to really make sure that by my stove, some of the basics, your onion powder, garlic powder. I like to throw a little coriander in there. Basic, your own favorite seasonings, minus the salt, and mix it around. And at that point, when those start to cook, I would like then to add, when these are cooking and they're going, add a little. You can kind of pick this up at any grocery store. These are larger grains of the Himalayan sea salt, and the cool thing about it, it's just like a pepper mill. So you're cracking it, so it's about as fresh as it can get. And you don't need a whole lot. That's the beauty about the Himalayan sea salt. I also like to put just a little bit of my seasoning blend in there, and while that's cooking, we then want to add should be cabbage. And again, just gonna put all of that in there. In addition to the cabbage, there's also turnips. I love turnip greens. I love collard greens. So when I tend to mix greens, I tend to mix collards and turnips. Turnips cook a little quicker, so I'll start out the collards with, again, aromatics and all of that. And I love turnip greens, but I also like the turnip root itself. When it's in season, it's usually sweet and crunchy, crisp, refreshing. So I'm just gonna put all of this in here. I kind of wanted to section them all so that you can just kind of see. But again, we're just gonna dump it all in there. So this has the turnips, cabbage. Again, when you're cutting the cabbage, this is almost bite size. When you're cutting your cabbage, because what it's gonna do is cabbage cooks kind of quick too. So you wanna cut it down into nice bite-sized pieces. I also love zucchini. We're about to come on that season. When you're cutting your zucchini, you're cutting it in half and then in thirds again, because we're talking bite size. So always kind of remember when you're cutting, keep your thumb back here, save it. You might need it later. And then I kind of like to be fancy. I like to cut, and it kind of looks nice in the pot too. So once I cut it in thirds, I'll kind of cut it then on just kind of like a slant, and it kind of comes out, kind of like with a nice little shape to it. And it looks really good in the pot. And at that point, and I tend to like to add the zucchini last because it keeps that vibrant color. I love the green color. Again, I scrub the skin really, really well. I try not to skin my vegetables as much as possible. There is still hopefully nutrient in the skin as well. I understand that, when it's on, they add waxes and stuff to help it go along the assembly line. So there's different things that you can use to clean your vegetables. But again, I'm gonna cut that. Zucchini is almost, the summer squash is almost in season. That's also an amazing vegetable to add as well. It's also a beautiful color. I'm gonna cut a little more. I'm gonna cut a little more carrot. One of my favorite cuts. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in there. So this is all cooking now. I wish you could smell it and all that good stuff. An oven? Okay, yeah, we can. A little bit of time. We can go ahead and get that going. That'll help. That's cool. For the carrots, this has already been skinned. Just kind of carefully, what I like to do, even if it's a bigger carrot, I like to cut it right down the middle. And then there's a cut called oblique. It's one of my favorite cuts. So it's a little fancy. So you're just basically going to go back and forth, making little triangles. And again, these are nice little triangles. It just looks really cool in the pot. And it's really kind of, I love this cut. When I'm cutting vegetables, you can just cut them and then you can be basic. Or you can really just kind of get excited and just kind of get all off into yourself and find out different ways to cut. I love the oblique cut, so I try to do that with the celery. I'll put that on a slant, or especially with the carrots. It's kind of like my favorite. Sometimes, if it's small enough, you can just go ahead Like this is small enough where I think we have life. And I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that in a pot. Oh, I don't think it's on. All right. Well, at any rate, we're going to continue. Basically, when you're making vitale stew or itale stew, it's really just a vegetable stew. But the important thing is to make sure that your stock, spend a little time on your stock. Again, there's ways, like I said, you can develop it with using old vegetables or stuff that you've used and that you've prepped. Or you can go out. A lot of times, if you go out and you get the vegetable stocks that's in the store, to me they're a little watery. But again, you can create what you want. You put the key is spending a little more time in the spice section, and looking at different spices that you might not have tried before. I like to also use whole. I hear something. I like to use whole spices as well and use a spice grinder. There's nothing like that because, again, once you freshly grind it, it's going to give off its aroma again. And so it really seems like you can't get any more fresh than that. I think this is on. So I'm just going to continue. One other thing I love, I love root vegetables. So we're going to just throw those carrots in there. I'm trying not to be thrown off too much. Now, for your sweet potatoes, I tend to like to skin those. For some reason, I don't know. I just feel like you just can't get them. And I like that orange color underneath, too. It's, not so much the skin, but this orange color underneath. So just spend a little time scraping down, getting past that white part, and getting to that beautiful orange color. The thing about the itale or the vitale stew or any type of vegetable stew is colors. I'm a color person. I love bold colors, which is why I love cooking coastal foods and ethnic foods, because there is a balance, especially with Southeastern flavors, Southeast Asian flavors. There's a balance. There's a sweet, there's a hot, there's a little bit of salt. And of course, there's the color, and then there's the freshness of it. Other things that you can use other than salt, especially if you're on a low-salt diet. I actually am a heart patient. I've had heart issues. I actually underwent 8.5 hours of open heart surgery, which saved my life. I'm too young for that, but then again, it depends on your lifestyle. It is lifestyle changing when you go through life challenges like that. So you do want to spend more time finding ways to continue to enjoy your food. Like, I love black soul food. I love black American soul food. I grew up on it. Greens and all of those other things, and sweet potatoes and mac and cheese. And there are ways that you can prepare that, just using plant-based foods. Just got to spend a little more time, a little more, a little more patience in the kitchen, working with different herbs and spices. And I can almost guarantee that you're going to come across the flavor profiles that you like growing up, when there's a meat product. This is my son over here, Mr. Cameraman. And so I'm just going to go ahead and cut. And again, you want your knife to be as sharp. I wish I could have sharpened this more. As chefs, we get really kind of obsessed with sharpening knives. But you definitely want to have sharp knives, because if it's not, it slips, you can cut your finger, and that hurts. I've cut my finger plenty of times. Sometimes I cut all nice and cool, and other times just kind of straight through. I want to get that in. Theoretically, you want to get your root vegetables in along with your cabbage. Cabbage takes a while to cook. So if this was on, these would be really kind of cooking down at this point and softening up. I'm just going to put this other in. And again, try to always remember to cut with your thumb back there. After a while, it just kind of gets habit. Sometimes you get lazy. But you'll be reminded if you cut yourself. All right. So at this point, This has been cooking down a little bit. Of course, you would start to smell it, all the aromatics releasing. And at this point, I would add this is when I would add a little, this is not a whole lot, because if you're able to add spices, your spice blends, also other things, you can use citrus instead of salt, you can use apple cider vinegar, you can use vinegars instead of salt. All of those things kind of elicit that same. You can actually use amino acids as well. So this has been cooking down. So we've got all of our vegetables in there. I'm gonna put the zucchini in there last because it doesn't take long for zucchini to cook at all. And I like that vibrant green color to pop when it's done. Let's see, we put some, and we've got some red, again, the red potato. And then one of the other things that I really think is really, that I love are scallions or green onions. You can buy a whole pack or you can get a whole bunch. And again, it's just bite size, 2 or 3 stalks. Depending on how much you like, I like a lot of scallion. This cooks down too. I would put that in about the same time that I've put in the zucchini. And at this point, we're rocking. We're cooking. One other thing that I want to put in, these don't really take long because they're already cooked as well, is chickpeas, garbanzo beans. Full of iron, protein, and it gives you a chance to add, they also have a meaty texture. So at this point, I would say, let all of this cook down for a good 10 minutes. At this point, I'd also like to add my seasoning blend. And you can be liberal with it. There's no salt in this. And I like seasoned. I like seasoning. Fresh cracked pepper is also delicious. I would put red pepper in there as well if you don't necessarily have an aversion to heat. Already, to me, I'm sorry, it's a beautiful pie. And then so at the same time, what I like to do is also have my stock or my broth that I've developed. And it could take time. Something else that I love to put in my stock is, when you've got a big stalk of celery, on the inside you've got these little kind of yellow pieces, and they've kind of got, like the inside of because you've got the beautiful green ones on the outside, but then you got these little yellow, but they're so fragrant and they add so much, flavor. So what I like to do is just the whole thing. Just kind of cut it up, throw that right in the stock. And and if you cover it, you put your spices in there. You've got your stock, cover it, let it go. I let my stock develop for at least 30 minutes to sometimes an hour. It just depends on what I'm using it for. So we'll say that this has been going for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. It doesn't necessarily have to, if you're time crunched, 15, 20 minutes, and you should develop a nice stock with that. So this has been cooking 15 minutes or so. You'll notice, you definitely, like I said, you're smelling it, you can hear it, you can see it. All of the vegetables are starting to break down. They're starting to become more and more tender. And then at this juncture, how are we doing with time? Time? How are we doing with time? 5 minutes. Q&A. All right, so to finish up the Vital stew, again, it's basically what you want, your favorite vegetables. The main thing and the biggest point or part of this whole pot of stew is the prep. You can be, I don't know, usually when I make a nice pot that would serve between 6 to 8 people, the prep is the biggest time. I could be 30 minutes or longer. And I know I do this professionally, but I just love to just add as many vegetables and as many colors. And it's a very vibrant soup, very vital to your organs. So once this is cooked down, that's when you'll go ahead and add our stock that we've been developing. We probably wanted to not quite cover the whole pot, But then once we add our stock, cover it for about 10 minutes and just kind of on simmer. So let it go on simmer for about 10 minutes. And then when the soup is done, pretty much, because you can taste, you'll be tasting, and that's one thing I encourage, is to always taste your food, taste as you go along. I have a lot of confidence in my food, but I still want to taste it each and every time to make the adjustments. And that's basically love to me, just doing that out of love. And so then at the end, if this has been cooking, I'd say 20 minutes, simmer. You lift off the pot, and then if you don't have an aversion to nuts, finish it off with a little coconut milk. And that's the part that, the Rastafarians really, they use coconut in everything, and they actually use whole coconut. And then you would just pour that in right on top. And that mixes well with your stock. And it might, there are particles. This looks broken. And this will kind of break down. And so, yeah. And because at that point, once you add your coconut milk, you really kind of want your stew to be just covered at the top. And let it go for another 5 minutes. The coconut milk really doesn't need to cook or anything. The longer that anytime you make a soup or a stew, if you eat it the next day, it tastes even better because it's had a chance to absorb all of those flavors and all that love that you put in it. So I would say prep time is anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes, perhaps an hour, depends on how many vegetables and how many people you are cooking for. And then you just kind of layer it. You layer your flavors. You put in some ingredients, little seasonings. Put in more ingredients, little seasonings. You've got your beautiful stock that you have built. You pour that in. 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes tops, and your product is pretty much done. And the last of it is just your coconut milk. And I'm a person of garnish, so like when I serve it in a bowl, I would love to, just a few parsley sprigs or something like that. I love curly parsley. It's also very good for you. It's in the mint family. But outside of that, that's the Vital stew.
So we do have a few extra minutes. If anybody has any questions, she can do some Q&As for a couple minutes. Just raise your hand and ask her nice and loud. Fire away, man.
Right, and so the oil is basically to bring out your aromatics. You always want to start before you add anything else. Your aromatics, like your celery, onions, garlic, ginger. No, it won't. And here's the thing: there's a trick. It's called hot pan foods won't stick. So in other words, put your pot on, let it heat up a little bit, then add your oils, and your food won't stick. And but you definitely want to get it coated enough. Even if you put your oil in and you kind of got to do this, to make sure that the bottom of your pan is coated. But try to heat it up first. And then one way to know that it might be hot enough is throw a little water in there. And if it makes that sound, and it's pretty much ready to go. But that's probably one of the things that you want to do is heat your pot up first or your pan up first, then add your oil, and your foods won't stick.
Does anybody else have any questions for Chef Audy?
There should be. I did extend the recipe.
There's some printouts right here behind. I believe those are it.
Sure. Thank you. And there is a sample, if anybody would be interested. All right. Hey, cameraman.
Raise your hand if you like a recipe.
Oh, there my.
Looks like everyone.
Awesome. And if you'd like, I can, dole up some samples for those who would like to try. Okay.
Yeah, we have a few minutes if you want to prepare some samples. Does anybody else have any questions for her? Okay. Her booth is literally right inside this door, which we'll take the tape off in just a moment. You're welcome to chat with her. And she'll get some samples ready. How about a round of applause for Chef Audy?